Hello students, in this video I will talk about ovulation. Ovulation is a process by which the ovum is released from the ovary. In my last video, I had elaborately told how a primordial follicle is converted to a Graafian follicle. Now the rupture of this Graafian follicle causes the ovulation, and this rupture occurs at the end of the follicular phase of the menstrual cycle. Usually the ovulation occurs on the 14th day of a 28-day cycle. But in case if the cycle length is altered, for example 35 days, ovulation occurs 14 days before the onset of the menstrual bleeding, because the duration of the luteal phase is always going to be constant, that is 14 days, irrespective of the length of the menstrual cycle. Between 5 to 7 days of the follicular phase, only one primordial follicle becomes the dominant follicle. This dominant follicle is called as the Graafian follicle. The granulosa cells of this Graafian follicle starts producing large quantities of estrogen. Under normal conditions, this excess quantities of estrogen will inhibit the LH secretion, that is the secretion of the luteinizing hormone which is produced by the anterior pituitary. But when the plasma concentration of estrogen reaches around 200 picogram and maintained at that level for 36 hours, estrogen stimulates the LH secretion, that is the luteinizing hormone secretion. So this is the positive feedback effect of estrogen on the LH secretion prior to the ovulation, and this is called as the LH surge, that is surge in the concentration of the luteinizing hormone, and this occurs 24 to 36 hours before ovulation. In the process of LH surge, this LH attains a maximum concentration, and this is called as the LH peak. This occurs 9 hours prior to ovulation. If there is no LH surge, no ovulation can occur. So, high amount of estrogen is produced by the granulosa cells of the Graafian follicle, and this large quantity of estrogen will have a positive feedback effect on the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary to produce enormous quantities of luteinizing hormone, and this is called as the LH surge. This positive feedback effect occurs only during the onset of the ovulation. During the rest of the cycle, this estrogen will have a negative feedback mechanism on the anterior pituitary, and this leads to the inhibition of luteinizing hormone as well as the follicle stimulating hormone secretion. So only during ovulation, this estrogen has got a positive feedback effect on the LH secretion which is secreted by the anterior pituitary, and this is called as the LH surge, which is very essential for ovulation to occur. In a 28-day menstrual cycle, the first 14 days is called as the proliferative phase, and the day 15 to 28 is called as the luteal phase. At around 14th day, the ovulation occurs. As I said earlier, if the length of the menstrual cycle varies, for example 35 days, the luteal phase is going to be constant, that is 14 days, and the ovulation will occur 14 days prior to the onset of the next menstrual bleed. So now only the proliferative phase duration is going to change. For example, in case of 35 days menstrual cycle, 21 days will be the proliferative phase and 14 days of luteal phase will be there. So the dominant hormone which is present during the follicular phase is the estrogen. The dominant follicle, that is the granulosa cells of the Graafian follicle, starts producing high concentration of the estrogen, which has a positive feedback effect on the luteinizing hormone secretion only during the onset of ovulation, and this will provoke the LH surge prior to the ovulation. This LH surge is very essential for ovulation. If there is no LH surge, ovulation cannot occur. After ovulation, the estrogen concentration falls. Now the hormone dominant in the luteal phase is the progesterone. This progesterone hormone is produced by the granulosa cells of the corpus luteum, and this is going to maintain the pregnancy if fertilization occurs. The surge of the follicle stimulating hormone also occurs simultaneously with the surge of the luteinizing hormone, because the high estrogen produced during the onset of ovulation will stimulate the anterior pituitary and cause the increased secretion of both these hormones. As such, this FSH, that is the follicle stimulating hormone, is not essential for ovulation, but this hormone primes the follicular cells to express adequate number of the LH receptors. So I had put all the ovarian as well as the pituitary hormones with respect to menstrual cycle in this slide. In the proliferative phase, estrogen is the dominant hormone, which rises enormously in concentration, and this estrogen is produced by the dominant follicle. This high concentration of estrogen will have a positive feedback effect on the anterior pituitary only before the ovulation, and this causes the LH surge. This LH surge is very essential for ovulation to occur. Without LH surge, no ovulation can occur. Mild FSH surge also occurs prior to ovulation, and this is not essential for ovulation, but this hormone primes the follicular cells to express more of the LH receptors. After ovulation, the estrogen concentration falls down. Now the hormone which is dominant in the luteal phase is the progesterone, which also decreases towards the end of the menstrual cycle if the fertilization of ovum does not occur. Luteinizing hormone increases the progesterone secretion, and this causes the distension of the follicle, which is due to the rapid increase in the volume of the follicular fluid. LH surge increases the release of the prostaglandins as well as the bradykinin, which will increase the ovarian blood flow and subsequently the follicular blood flow. The dominant follicle becomes now highly vascularized and edematous, and this will increase the size of the follicle to about 25 millimeter. The follicular blood flow, which is increased, also increases the antral fluid volume, and this in turn exerts pressure on the surrounding granulosa cells. Now the cumulus oophorus complex gets detached from the follicular wall. The basement membrane also disintegrates due to the effects of the proteolytic enzymes. The luteinizing hormone promotes the synthesis of plasminogen activator by the granulosa and the theca cells, which will cause the conversion of plasminogen to plasmin. Now this plasmin causes the proteolysis of the follicular wall, and also it activates the synthesis of collagenase, which will restrict the connective tissue matrix of the follicular wall. Finally, oxytocin causes the contraction of the follicular wall and extrudes the oocyte from the follicle as well as from the ovary. The released ovum is taken up by the released ovum in the process of ovulation is taken up by the fallopian tube, and this will travel to the ampulla of the fallopian tube where fertilization takes place. It is essential to know the day of ovulation because it carries a lot of clinical significance, especially in treating the infertility patients. So these are the clinical indicators of ovulation: rise in basal body temperature, Mittelschmerz, vaginal discharge, spin Barkit, Fern test, and ovulation can be identified from the plasma hormone levels and ultrasound scanning. The basal body temperature increases during ovulation by about 0.5 degrees Celsius. So it is advisable to maintain a accurate chart, that is a temperature chart, to detect the day of the ovulation, and this is recorded orally early in the morning. The increase in the body temperature can be attributed to the hormone progesterone because it is a thermogenic hormone. During the process of ovulation, that is the rupture of the Graafian follicle, bleeding occurs into the antrum of the follicle. Small amount of blood also escapes into the abdominal cavity, and this causes peritoneal irritation and produces short-lived lower abdominal pain, and this is called as Mittelschmerz. Sometimes there may be a transitory increase in the vaginal discharge during ovulation. Now, what is ovulation cascade? When all the three parameters, that is rise in the basal body temperature, Mittelschmerz and spotting, all the three are present, they are collectively called as the ovulation cascade. In the proliferative phase, estrogen is the dominant hormone, and this will cause the cervical mucus to be thin and alkaline, and the elasticity is also maximal during this phase. When the secretory phase begins, the hormone which is dominant in the secretory phase is the progesterone, and this will make the cervical mucus very thick. So, whenever a drop of cervical mucus collected at the time of ovulation is placed on a glass slide, this can be stretched to as long as 10 centimeter like a thread. This elastic nature of the mucus is called as the Spin-Barrett effect. Whenever the elasticity is decreased, it indicates ovulation has already taken place and the progesterone hormone is in action because of the less elasticity. The cervical mucus before ovulation forms a fern-like pattern under the effect of the estrogen when the mucus is spread on a slide. This can be confirmed by a microscopic examination of the mucus smear. Following ovulation, the mucus becomes thick, and this fern pattern is not observed in the smear of the mucus, and this is due to the progesterone of the secretory phase. Elevated progesterone levels in the blood is usually associated with ovulation. Your blood test to measure progesterone can be done about 1 week before the anticipated onset of the next menstrual period. The LH surge also occurs just before ovulation, so the luteinizing hormone levels in the blood or the urine can be measured to predict whether the follicle is mature and ready for ovulation. Estrogen is secreted by the growing follicle, and this will rise rapidly prior to ovulation. If ovulation is induced with fertility drugs, frequent estrogen level measurements may be needed to determine the follicular growth. Follicular growth can be measured by transvaginal ultrasound. This is a painless procedure, and this can be performed on several different days during the menstrual cycle, so that the follicles can be measured precisely and its size and growth also can be easily monitored. Ovulation generally occurs when the follicle measures about 18 to 25 millimeter. If the follicle suddenly disappears or regresses in size along with free fluid in the pouch of Douglas, it is suggestive that ovulation had taken place. Identification of the day when this ovulation occurs is of paramount importance in treating the infertility patients. These patients who are preferably on ovulation induction drugs like clomiphene citrate are advised serial monitoring of the ovarian follicles by transvaginal ultrasound. When the follicle reaches nearly 20 to 25 millimeter, this is called the Graafian follicle, which will rupture releasing the ovum, and this process is called as the ovulation. Clinically, this can be observed by sudden disappearance of the follicle or regression in its size along with the fluid in the pouch of Douglas in the transvaginal ultrasound. The lifespan of the ovum is about 72 hours. So within this time, the couple can plan for a natural conception or can go for artificial reproductive techniques depending on the clinical condition of the patient. Identifying the day of ovulation also helps in contraception for the couples who want to avoid pregnancy. After ovulation, the ruptured follicle is filled with blood, and this follicle is called as the corpus hemorrhagicum. Now the cells lining the follicle will rapidly proliferate to replace the blood with the luteal cells, and these luteal cells are rich in lipid. Now the follicle is called as the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum consists of the granulosa cells, theca cells and the fibroblasts. The number of mitochondria and the lipid droplets will increase in the granulosa cells of the corpus luteum, and these morphological changes are called as the luteinization, and this luteinization is very important for the synthesis of steroid hormones. The granulosa cells of the corpus luteum are vascular, whereas the granulosa cells present in the follicle are non-vascular. LH is the major stimulator for the process of the luteinization. This luteinizing hormone maintains the functions of the corpus luteum, and that's why it is called as the luteinizing hormone. The follicle stimulating hormone increases the number of the LH receptors on the cells. The hormones produced by this corpus luteum are progesterone, estrogen and androgens. Now, what is the fate of this corpus luteum? If fertilization does not occur, it is converted to corpus luteum of mensuration and finally degrades to corpus albicans. If fertilization occurs, it is called as the corpus luteum of pregnancy, and this will start secreting essential hormones to maintain the pregnancy until the placenta takes over its functions. If fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum degenerates at about 13 days after ovulation, and this process is called as luteolysis or luteal regression. The substances which cause this luteolysis are termed as the luteolysins, and some of them are oxytocin, prostaglandins and gonadotropin releasing hormone. All these luteolysins will promote the luteal regression by preventing the action of the luteinizing hormone on the corpus luteum. Now the degenerated corpus luteum is replaced by avascular and non-functional fibrous tissue that is called as the corpus albicans. In this picture of cut section of ovary, we can see the follicles in different stages of development. The primordial follicles getting converted to primary follicles and the secondary follicle, and finally a Graafian follicle is formed. The rupture of this Graafian follicle is called as the ovulation. So the remaining follicle without the egg is called as the corpus hemorrhagicum initially, which is filled with blood. Now this corpus hemorrhagicum will be converted to corpus luteum because the granulosa cells are filled with the lipid droplets. If fertilization does not occur, this corpus luteum will degenerate into a avascular fibrotic structure that is called as the corpus albicans. If fertilization occurs, the penetration of the ovum by the sperm completes the second meiotic division. Now the implanted fertilized ovum starts secreting the human chorionic gonadotropin, which has got LH-like activity. Therefore, this HCG, that is the human chorionic gonadotropin, maintains the luteinization, and also it promotes the functions of the corpus luteum of pregnancy. This corpus luteum of pregnancy starts secreting the hormones which are essential for maintaining the pregnancy until the placenta takes over its functions. The corpus luteum secretes various hormones like progesterone, estrogen and inhibin A. It provides favorable environment for the implantation of the fertilized ovum. It maintains the early part of the pregnancy by secreting progesterone till the placenta becomes functional. One of the most common cause of infertility is a luteal deficiency, otherwise called as a luteal insufficiency. Here there is a defective luteinization of the granulosa cells of the corpus luteum. Because of this, there is inadequate secretion of the progesterone from the corpus luteum, and this can be diagnosed by demonstrating low progesterone levels in the mid-luteal phase in successive cycles. This condition can be treated by administering progesterone, which can maintain the early part of the pregnancy. So in this video, I had described how ovulation occurs in detail. Thank you.